Hello dear audience, welcome to FilmHead channel where you will get all kinds of information about newly released movie on internet. Number 1. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey sorely wants a spot in the So Naughty It's Good category by showing you what it would look like if Winnie the Pooh became a sadistic killer alongside his face-devouring friend, Piglet. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is the next rickety float in a parade of low-budget horror movies getting our hopes up with insane titles that spark initial intrigue but can't deliver. There's no honor standing next to such examples as The Mean One or Apocalypse, which adapted The Grinch and a Goon-style hockey story, respectively, to weak and largely unfunny horror comedies. When it comes to mutilating the beloved children's book character into a slasher, Blood and Honey is a failure across the board, not only in its writing and acting but also from cinematography to editing, except for a few gnarly character deaths. The eerie retelling of A. Milne's well-loved Winnie the Pooh stories by Frank Waterfield begins with a tone of dread and gloom. The 100-acre wood is still inhabited by Winnie the Pooh and Christopher Robin, but after Christopher departs for college, everything goes wrong. This is a clever play on Pooh's perception of Christopher's development as an abandonment and provides him with a vindictive reason to go on a murderous rampage a la Jason Voorhees. It is an origin story that initially piques interest, but as it is poorly executed, that interest quickly wanes. Number 2. You're Next. You're Next is one of those underrated slasher movies. This home invasion film centers around a family who has reunited to celebrate their parents' 35th anniversary. While they are sitting down at dinner, disaster strikes when an arrow is shot into the head of one of the family members. As the rest of the family fights to survive, not all will make it out alive. Even if the heroine prevails in the end, it is usually because of chance rather than actual skill. Erin, on the other hand, kicked the masked killers in addition to outwitting them. Erin's ability to eliminate the assassins one by one stems from her childhood survival skills training. She maintains her wits about her, makes the most of her circumstances, and plans ahead by setting traps for the murderers. Throughout most of You're Next, with the only exception being when she locked herself in a basement with no alternative escape route, Erin is one of the few heroines who can claim they made logical survival decisions. You're Next does a great job of showing a variety of ways to kill someone using tools you can find in your own home. Some of these kills include a blender, knives, axes, screwdrivers, logs, and even a garrote wire. Most of the kills are unsuspecting, including the use of the garrote wire, which was strewn across the front door. Number 3. Halloween 2018. Michael Myers, the notorious serial killer who went on a killing rampage in Haddonfield and was institutionalized at Smith's Grove Psychiatric Hospital for 40 years, is scheduled to be transferred to a maximum security prison on October 29, 2018. When Aaron Corey and Dana Haynes, hosts of the True Crime podcast, visit the hospital, Aaron shows Michael his mask, but to no avail. Sheriff Barker is convinced to assist in the search for Michael by Dr. Rambert Sartain, Michael's psychiatrist and a former pupil of Dr. Samuel Loomis. Allison is saved by Hawkins and Sartain after Michael murders Oscar. In an attempt to assassinate Michael, Deputy Hawkins is attacked and left for dead by Dr. Sartain, who has developed an obsession with Michael. It is revealed that he orchestrated Michael's escape to study him in the wild. Dr. Sartain heads toward Laurie's home with an unconscious Michael and Allison locked in the backseat together. Michael wakes up and kills Sartain while Allison flees. Michael then kills the 2 police officers stationed outside Laurie's home and strangles Ray to death. The trio sets the house ablaze, and Laurie says goodbye to Michael before she faints. As her family takes her to the hospital, a final shot of the burning basement is shown, with Michael nowhere in sight. In a post-credits scene, Michael's breathing is heard, indicating that he has survived. Number 4. Terrifier. Get your coulrophobia, fear of clowns under control, because Terrifier is about to be unleashed onto unsuspecting audiences. This film pulls absolutely no punches, and goes for the jugular at every blood-soaked turn. As I was watching the film, I was trying to think of a scarier film involving clowns, and it left this writer drawing a blank. In fact, I would say that Art the Clown is maybe the most frightening clown in cinema history. He makes some other clowns, from some other higher-profile films, look like Disney characters. This is one of the most scariest slasher film ever on internet. Terrifier gets off to a great start. It depicts Art gathering his various tools of the trade and getting ready for another Halloween night. In Art's black bag of mayhem are knives, saws, scalpels, and all kinds of nasty stuff. Mayhem, as in the crime of deliberately wounding or maiming someone, originally so as to render the victim powerless, is exactly what I mean. It has total 2-part volume. After being resurrected by an unknown entity following the Miles County massacre, Art the Clown uses a hammer to brutally murder the coroner investigating his body. He goes to the laundromat to clean his blood-soaked garments where he encounters the little pale girl, a mysterious sinister entity in similar clown attire. A lone patron sees Art interacting with the girl. Number 5. Saw. It is never a bad idea to relive one of the scariest, gory horror franchises in contemporary history. The Saw movies have a long history of making us squirm in our seats, 9 gruesome films dating back to 2004 till this day. It has total 10 volume from Saw 1, 2004 to Saw 10 at present. Once we get to the point of John's reveal as the killer, even when we're talking about the first sequels in the franchise, it's better to think of Saw continuity not as a straight line but as an increasingly complex knot, looping back over itself, circling around from the past to the present, and growing more and more twisted as time goes on. Among all slasher film, Saw is one of the most terrifying movies. Horror fans of poor heart are not allowed for this kind of film. Of all the ways to describe the Saw horror movies, inspired by a true story probably isn't one that commonly crosses viewers' considerations. The movies follow Kramer as he builds the most sadistic Saw traps in which his victims either die or are significantly mutilated by escaping. Though the concept is reasonably far-fetched by most people's standards, the original inspirations for Hwannell and Hwan's Saw franchise are actually rooted in reality. However, while the concept of Saw is based on real-life stories, then the initial conception of the Jigsaw Killer, the Saw movie's main villain, came to him. The filmmaker conjured the idea of a psychopath who was told they were going to die of a terminal illness. Number 6. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The 2022 reboot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre was released on Netflix and updated the story of a final girl battling Leatherface and his cannibalistic family. This time, sisters Melody and Lila go to Harlow, Texas, a small town where they think they can make creative careers for themselves. While they look at an old building to try to create the process of gentrification, they come across the evil Leatherface and final girl Sally Hardesty. The conclusion of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 is difficult to enjoy because Melody and Lila narrowly escape death and depart Harlow, Texas. Following Sally's passing, Melody throws Leatherface into a swimming pool with his renowned chainsaw, and she and Lila end up in a truck. Fans have mixed feelings about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that mainly has to do with the horror movie's ending. After watching an entire movie centered around 2 sisters who care about each other and have their whole lives ahead of them, it's devastating to watch Leatherface kill Melody and parade around holding her head. In a haunting and memorable final scene, Sally's laughter can be heard as the truck leaves. In one of the most famous horror movie images ever, Leatherface holds his chainsaw up in the air as he's incredibly upset and mad. The ending of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 is trying to echo this original image, as instead of holding his chainsaw, Leatherface dances with Melody's head. Number 7. Thanksgiving. The plot revolves around a serial killer who descends upon a quiet Massachusetts town with the sinister intent of turning the titular holiday into a gruesome bloodbath. It is a holiday-themed horror film where a serial killer targets a small Massachusetts town during Thanksgiving. A mysterious masked maniac terrorizes residents of Plymouth, Massachusetts, 1 year after a Black Friday riot ended in tragedy. Picking off victims one by one, the seemingly random revenge killings soon become part of a larger, sinister plan. The crowd sees them and, riled up, stampedes into the store in a frenzy, resulting in multiple people dying gruesomely, including Amanda Collins, wife of store manager Mitch. Bobby gets his arm broken in the riot and moves away, ghosting the group. Despite Mitch and other locals' objections, Rightmart is getting ready for another Black Friday deal a year later. The killer of Lizzie, the waitress, is a figure donning a John Carver mask. Lizzie was present during the Black Friday event, which gives authorities reason to think that the individuals involved are being singled out. The police decide to lure out Carver during the Thanksgiving parade, with Jessica and her family, plus Scuba, being made to participate since Carver is specifically targeting them. After a brief protest from Mitch, who is definitely not the killer, as everyone runs in a panic, Carver manages to abduct Scuba and the Wrights. Number 8. The Collector. The Collector is a 2009 film. In a desperate attempt to repay his ex-wife, Arkin, an ex-con plots to steal from his new employer's home. Breaking into the house, he is unaware that a masked criminal has already trespassed the house, setting up deadly traps. If you want to call them characters, this movie is more about the gory torture than the characters themselves. Among the actors are Madeline Zima, Michael Riley Burke, Diana Ayala Goldner, Andrea Roth, William Prale, and Carly Scott Collins. The Collector, he is a sick and twisted person with a morbid interest in torturing, kidnapping, and killing people in the most gruesome ways. Every time he looked at me with that empty stare, I looked away. Maybe it would have been a good idea, but we don't know anything about this ruthless man. This film has another sequel named The Collection. The Collection brings in a stunning horror story based on the first movie of The Collection, The Collector, released in 2009. The action takes place on the dance floor, where Josh, Missy, and Elena Peters are having fun. Elena withdraws herself into a quiet place to reflect after spotting her partner Brian with a different woman. She finds dying Arkin O'Brien in a crimson trunk that she finds. Everything goes wrong after that, and a number of lethal traps murder almost everyone at the party. Number 9. Wrong Turn. At the start of the new millennium, slasher films were breaking new ground in both the 10th and 21st centuries. In an effort to establish themselves in a new wave of horror films, Constantine Film created a slasher movie in the 1970s that was influenced by brutal cinema. Their efforts would result in the film Wrong Turn, released in July of 2003. Birthed from the writing of Alan B. McElroy, those who worked on the project likely didn't expect the creation of a franchise that continues on to this day. The series' most recent entry, a remake bearing the same name as the original film, saw a limited one-day release in January 2021. Having endured 18 years and a roller coaster of approval and disapproval, it's worth looking into the history of Wrong Turn, including its bookend releases and everything in between. Wrong Turn is very much human cutting films that has total 6 volume from Wrong Turn 1 to Wrong Turn 6. Slasher horror film lovers should watch every of them. There's a lifeline during this horror in the form of Matthew Modine as Scott, Jen's father. The movie even begins with his search for her, and it gives the story a depth that makes it especially painful and nasty. Everyone here is a family member, someone's loved one. Wrong Turn proves sharp at creating a strong sense of characters being doomed, but giving them a glimmer of hope if they can beat the next nasty threat. Number 10. Scream. Before Scary Movie or A Haunted House were even ill-conceived ideas, Wes Craven was crafting some of the best horror satire out there. The new Tubi documentary, Lights, Camera, Murder, Scream combines Hollywood history with true crime intrigue, as it shines a light on the story of the Gainesville Ripper, aka Louisiana-born Danny Rolling, a real-life serial rapist and murderer who inspired Scream screenwriter Kevin Williamson to create his iconic Ghostface villain. The Scream film series has been lovingly exposing weaknesses in the horror genre for 25 years, as well as in anyone who has the misfortune of being attacked by one of the many Ghostface killers in the series. Wes Craven, the director, and writers Aaron Kruger and Kevin Williamson have explored the bowels of the horror genre and called out Hollywood conventions and regulations in a way that is significantly self-referential in 4 films. They have produced some excellent slasher scares. Now, the series is back for blood with confusingly titled 5th Entry Scream, from Ready or Not directors Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, and writers James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick. Pitching a whole new generation of teens against another ghoulish Ghostface, with the original survivor trio of Sidney Prescott, Dewey Riley, and Gale Weathers back in the mix too.